Good day. Thanks for joining me. I am Tamara Scott. You're watching, you're listening, however you may be participating, to Truth for Our Time as we help you when the headlines hit home, giving you information, truth that you can use, and just help along the way. We figure that if God's expected to live through it, He's directed you how to do it. And so we often deal with a variety of issues on this show, sometimes several in the same show. And we've dedicated a lot of time to the Common Core battle and testing that has pervaded our children's classroom. It's not that any of us are against a test or an assessment. It's the overarching nature that they have taken. They used to be a tool in helping decide where a child might be in a subject of understanding. Now they are the only tool used too often, and they are given great weight that I don't think they were probably ever intended to give, or that it's healthy to give. I think it's okay in predicting one factor or giving an understanding. But what we're seeing is more and more time, and I was trying to find one of the articles we've had on earlier that talked about the amount of time in the classroom that would be dedicated to testing, whether it's the practice test, whether it's the teaching instruction of the test. We're losing teaching time on topics because we're focusing on the test, especially now that we are tying teacher merit or teacher pay to that, something we all thought was probably a good idea. Here's the deal, the basic common sense. You and your local school districts know who the good teachers are. You know why? Because your children are learning. And so you talk to each other at the soccer game or at the grocery store and you say, oh, so-and-so might, really liked that teacher, learned so much when he was in that classroom. Or they didn't learn something in another teacher's classroom. That's what you ought to be able to have as the ability to know who your good teachers are and are not, rather than fighting a union to fire a bad teacher. And studies, I'm trying to think what our guests have told us in the past. Professional Educators of Iowa, Jim Hawkins, has been a guest on this show numerous times before, and I think he tells us it costs like $150,000 to fire the worst of teachers because they have to fight the union. More than a lot of small school districts can afford. So my first guest today is going to talk about testing. We've had several experts on to talk about the issues with the tests themselves, and then there's the national opt-out movement, as millions of parents are now saying, no, not my child, not anymore. And so this dad we're going to talk to a little bit in the show said that same thing, and we're going to hear his story. It sounds like one of those that's so far-fetched it simply can't be true. Like there must be something more involved. So we'll give him airtime and let him air his issues and see what we can figure out as well. And then joining me at 10:30 in the show, Ann Gazel, Gretchen Logue. These have been people early on in this battle on Common Core, and how about I even say better, in protecting our children, in pursuing the best education. And so they'll be coming on and talking about the lawsuit that they have filed on SBAC, where it's at, where it's going. And then they'll give us the update on a couple of new bills at the federal level, H.R. 5. You can do a search on H.R. 5. Better yet, if you're on Facebook, go to the numerous pages, do a search, do Stop Common Core, and see what all pops up. Most states have a Stop Common Core page. Usually in Iowa, you'll see the Stop Common Core Iowa page that has the orange profile picture that says Stopping Common Core in Iowa. Like that if you haven't already. We put a lot of information on there. But find one close to you. Sometimes they're Utahns against the core, Hoosiers against the core, Hoosiers against the core for Indiana. But usually it's Common Core, Stop Common Core in Minnesota or Stop Common Core in Iowa. So you can find more information on those pages. HR 5, I think if you go to Missouri Education Watchdog, you'll find information on there about that bill. Here in the state, we're dealing in Iowa with a bullying bill, B-U-L-L-Y-I-N-G, not a bowling bill, B-O-W-L-I-N-G, but a B-U-L-L-Y-I-N-G. The unfortunate thing is life is not without peril. There's never going to be a perfect scenario And what did our founding fathers say? Those who give up liberty with the hope of security shall have neither. And so we're seeing that now in our schools as they come up with these ideas to try and protect our children. And here's the deal. In the 50s and the 60s, we didn't have so many of these issues, not to the scale we have today. Why? You can ridicule this if you want, but we taught biblical principles. We taught the golden rule that groups across the world, philosophies, educations, and even atheists adhere to the golden rule. The atheists in Kansas City, I'm told, have it on their literature. I know the University of Iowa, Northern Iowa, free thinkers had it on their pamphlet at one time. I won't tell them they're quoting scripture. The golden rule comes out of the New Testament. But you teach others, you treat others as you want them to treat you. Treat others as you would have them treat you. It's a great practice, respecting all people, not putting anybody above another. And so the bill that's facing us in Iowa, one, it omits parents. If you think that a parent might react negatively in a certain situation, the school can decide not to tell the parents. Well, what you call negative and what I call negative may be opposite. We don't want harm to anybody, abuse, or anything else, but there's already protections in the law for assault, for abuse, and they're already mandatory reporters. So it's already covered. And that's the other problem with this bill. It does nothing new. Everything it protects is already protected in the code under 280.23. What it does do, that's new, is further removes the parent, omits the parent from the process. The party that should be the first to hear will be the last to know. Who could offer help will be unavailable. Then it also allows teachers and school officials to have authority off school premises, outside school activities, and it encourages them to look through the internet, to stalk your children and see if maybe they've done something offensive. Depending on who we are, we can be offended by what somebody says at any point in the day. Another biblical principle, working at not being offended when somebody says something. Now understand, to give a school increased authority, somebody else's authority has to decrease. So when the school gets a greater authority, you as a parent will get less. Somebody has to be the ultimate authority. That's the problem with this bill. We all want kids to be safe. We want all children to be safe. But we don't want to do it at the peril of another group of students, so that a few can feel happy. Everybody deserves the same justice. And what one student says to another student shouldn't be grounds for a bullying bill because the other student decided to be offended. It should be the object of the one who would be punished that should be under scrutiny, not the recipient. Did someone do something wrong? That's what we should be looking at. Not whether someone else decided to be offended, not whether it was politically correct or not. And will right of conscience of each student be protected? It's not in the workplace. We see the Gort's house, we talk about it often. Not allowed to do weddings anymore in their own business because they offended someone. They didn't deny anyone their rights. They simply declined business. And now they're told they cannot do weddings any longer. It's not the freedom our founding fathers fought to give us. And there are a couple things also, when I'm just going through the websites that pop up as I was studying something else in Alabama. I don't know this family. I don't know if they're good, bad. I have no idea. But the headline alone alarms me. Ryan, I don't know if you want to bring up that Alabama seizure up. Can you find it? Family with 7 children, and the Department of Human Services have taken their children because one of the smaller children who later was diagnosed with autism was sneaking out of the house. The mother knew it. She was concerned about it. She took him to a doctor for diagnosis. But in the meantime, the DHS came in and removed the children. That's on medicalkidnap.com. I had not seen that website, but something we ought to be thinking about. Who has the authority? Oh, you did. Ryan, you are awesome. I don't know this family. I'm not saying they're good, bad, or otherwise. But a state better have incredible reason, proof, before they come in and take children away. And the nursing baby that they took from the mother, that she's not got to have that time, that bonding time now in her family. That is irreplaceable, unforgivable, unless you've got an incredibly strong justification. Along those lines, we're going to go to our first guest, Eric Buwala, B with a B-U-W-A-L-A. Eric, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me on your show.
You're very welcome, and I appreciate you taking the time to contact me after I put the question out, the search out for who you were. So take our listeners quickly through what brought you to this point. Your daughter's what grade?
My daughter's in third grade. She's 9 years old, and I also have a son who is 16. He's a sophomore in high school.
So this isn't your first rodeo?
No. My wife and I have been together 20 years. Well, we've been married for 20 years. We've been together, I think, close to 24 now. Generally speaking, my son's experience through school was a smooth one. We live in a very small town in Ohio. It's definitely a small town mentality, small town government. Generally speaking, our experience with my son and the school district has been that, there's some really great teachers that really care about kids and have a lot of common sense. The administration, however, leaves a lot to be desired. And, I've had run-ins with them before on a number of issues, which I can kind of link to the current one. To be honest, I'm like to think of myself as a fairly politically educated person, an active person, but I knew nothing about Common Core or the Ohio participates in the PARC testing to meet the Common Core standards. I didn't know the first thing about any of it. This all started in September when my daughter took the OAA, which is the written test that preceded the PARC Common Core test, third grade reading exam. And this is as Ohio transitions into the new Common Core standards. They took the OAA test in the fall, and then they take the actual electronic PARC test in the spring. So she took this test, and unbeknownst to us, her parents, that it was coming, she took the practice test and I guess just had a nervous breakdown. The teachers and the administration informed the students, again, without any communication home that this was coming, that they had to take this big standardized test, and it was very important, and if they didn't pass it, they would not go to fourth grade. They'd have to redo third grade or go to summer school. And my daughter, the sweetheart that she is, loves to make her teachers happy, loves to make grown-ups happy. She's just a very well-behaved, very endearing sort of kid. So they lay this on her that you have this test, and by the way, if you don't do well, you're going to have to do the whole year over again. And she broke down in tears multiple times trying to get through the practice test.
And for the record, she's not the only child. We have stories coming out all over the nation. We've had teachers on this show with video testifying, talking about what they saw students doing, from pulling their hair, scratching themselves, to stabbing themselves with a pencil. Well,
it was a shock to us, and really she didn't even she didn't fully explain to us how upset she was when she came home. We actually were contacted by her teacher and the guidance counselor, who, explained in detail how upset she got and how they had to, take her from the room and take her for walks. And they came to us in hopes that we would be able to help with the situation. So we met with them, we talked with my daughter. My understanding at the time was she had to take this test. I was ignorant of what it was and what my rights were. So, we did our best to educate her and say, look, you're not really going to have to redo it. It's not that big of a deal. We did our best to calm her, prep her. When the actual test day came, she couldn't sleep the night before. She broke into tears several times at home. We had her full of confidence when she went into school, and I got an email in the morning from her teacher saying that she seemed like she was really putting her best foot forward. And then I got an email shortly after saying I spoke too soon. And basically, it was a repeat of the practice test. Breaking down in tears, having to be taken from the room, taken for a walk, until she could sort of get control of her emotions and work on the test again.
How long was this test?
What's that?
How long is this test?
My understanding was it was a couple of hours. The test itself took 2 to 3 hours to complete.
And they gave this test all at once to these kids, 3-hour test all at once to these kids, or over the span of a couple of days?
No, it was a single day.
3-hour test, one day for third graders.
That was my understanding, yes.
Wow. I know most adults who couldn't make it through that either.
Well, it was a big deal for her. I, at that point, started to say, well, if it's this detrimental to her, I need to find out more about it, and I need to see exactly what it means to her education and if there's a way to opt her out of it. I found out several weeks later that basically she missed a proficient score by 1 point.
And is your proficient rate, some of them are 40%, some of them are 65%. What's your proficient rate? Do you know?
I don't. I know the actual score. It's, I think, 395, and she got a 394. I don't know out of how many points that is. That was a whole other sort of area of difficulty. This is when I first got a sinking feeling in my stomach. What I found as I started to do research, and the first place that I went was the Ohio Department of Education's website, and then subsequently started reading the Ohio Revised Code, where the law was enacted to actually put this standard forward. And what I found was this third grade reading assessment. It's actually called the fourth grade reading guarantee. And the law basically is put in place to guarantee that every fourth grader in Ohio meets a certain standard of reading knowledge. So at the beginning of third grade, they give them a test that covers all the material they're going to take in third grade. So they're being tested on material they don't know yet.
Sure.
If they happen to know it, then great. And if they don't, they take the new electronic PARC test, which starts in spring of 2015. So first, it didn't make any sense to me why they're testing them on material they don't know. Second, I told her teacher, maybe it would be better if you didn't categorize it to the students that if you don't pass this test, you're not going to go to fourth grade, because it's actually not true. The first test is really irrelevant. The thing that's important is the test at the end of the year that shows they've learned what they're supposed to learn. And she said that was a good bit of advice, and they would consider that for next time. But then, as I dug into this, and I found that the law in Ohio, the law provides teeth for this third grade reading assessment. The law specifically says that a district shall not promote a student to fourth grade if they don't get a proficient score on this reading assessment. Now, there's a third grade math assessment, and then from fourth through eighth grade, there's potentially 3 tests that will be given twice a year. All those tests, there's no penalty in the law for the student not taking it. The law says the school has to administer it, but there's no penalty for the student not taking it. I called the Ohio Department of Education. They told me the same thing over the phone. So I asked the teacher, this is in October of 2014, how do I opt my daughter out of the rest of these tests? Assuming, I was giving up the point that she would have to take that third grade reading assessment test again. But all the rest of the tests, let's spare her the anxiety. I was referred to the district curriculum director, and she said, well, there is no way to opt out. Your daughter has to take the test. So I responded with the parts of the Ohio Revised Code I had read and that I had talked to ODE, and they told me, well, I'll need to check with the Ohio Department of Education, and I'll get back to you. And a month went by without a return, call or email. So I contacted them again. Their answer was they talked to ODE. ODE said my daughter has to take the test. So I'm providing information that I have collected saying, here's who I talked to at Ohio Department of Education. Here's what they told me. Again, here's the law as I understand it. So they were going to talk to somebody else at Ohio Department of Education. Now we're into December. I had a face-to-face meeting with the district curriculum director and I believe it was the district treasurer. They had sit in on the meeting. And during the face-to-face meeting, they basically tried to talk me out of opting my daughter out. And at this point, obviously I'm frustrated, but not that frustrated. I'm like, okay, they're gonna put up a bit of a fight. That's fine. I'm not gonna let the matter drop. They tried to tell me, that maybe I'd be doing a disservice as her parent if I didn't teach her how to overcome this anxiety. And I told them that, we're working with her on her anxiety, and we'll work with her at home as her parents in the ways that we think are productive. I don't think exposing her to the test again is beneficial. Then they tried to talk me into that because I said I didn't want her to take any standardized tests that weren't required by law.
And so
then, go ahead.
Let's kind of jump forward to where you're at now. What grade is she in now?
She's still in third.
And so you're right in the heat of this battle.
I'm in the heat of the battle.
And you've said no test.
Right. I escalated it to the superintendent, had multiple meetings with him that went the same way, multiple emails with him. I basically what I realized by the end of January is their answer to my question was that they weren't going to answer the question. The Ohio Department of Education told me there's no mechanism for opt-out in Ohio. However, there's also no penalty for the student not taking the test, with the exception of this third grade reading exam. They said it's real simple. Give your school district a letter stating your intentions, and the school district should give you back a letter in writing stating the consequences. In other words, if the local school district has a policy to not promote your student if they don't take the test, which I guess Ohio law gives them the ability to do. So my thinking was fine. If the school district tells me in writing there's no penalty, then great, we're good to go. All this nonsense can be avoided. If the school district gives me back in writing that they have passed a measure saying they're going to hold my daughter back for not taking these standardized tests, I understand it's within the law. That's within their power to do so. But then my next plan was to do a mailing to all the parents in the community to start an opt-out program locally and apply pressure to the school board.
Okay, now I see why you got yourself into trouble, because you weren't just one person. You're building a movement.
Well, if that's what it took to look out for the needs of my daughter, then that's what I was willing to do. and work within the framework of the school's legal rights, but also within, what I can do as a parent. So the district, in seeing this, they don't want to set a precedent either way. Their play is, if they told me in writing there were no consequences, well then, geez, that could lead to other parents questioning whether they want their kids taking this test, and they may have more parents opting out. If they give me something in writing that says they're going to hold my daughter back over this controversial test, well, that obviously doesn't look very good from a public perspective, and again gives me the ability to start a movement. So their answer is they just won't answer the question. They've answered other questions I didn't ask, and they've refused to answer mine.
We're going to have to go to a break here pretty soon. So now they've been told you can't come on school premises, you can't go to her concerts, and you can't even communicate with the school officials?
That's where it ended.
Did you do anything? Were you violent? Were you physical? What upped the game?
No. What upped the game was the superintendent. I had given him information printed in newspapers where people from ODE were quoted as saying parents have a right to not have their child not take the test. And his response was, well, that person from ODE is uncredible, or they're a liar. And I said, well, if you're going to discredit everybody, tell me who you need to hear it from and how you need to hear it. And he gave me the name of Paula Mahaley at the Ohio Department of Education and said he needed it in writing. And I got it, and I emailed it to him, and I heard no communication back. So the test was 2 weeks away now, and the superintendent's not communicating with me. I emailed my daughter's teacher and her principal and said, look, here's the information from ODE. The superintendent's not getting back to me. I don't want to be a disruption to the class, but my intention is to not have her take the test. What would you like me to have her do? Should I have her bring books? Should I have her bring art supplies? Do you have other schoolwork for her to do? Let me know. And also, I plan on taking the 2 test days off of work, and I will be in the office. I'll bring my laptop and a book. If there's any anxiety whatsoever, she breaks down. If you need me, I'm there and I'm available. The superintendent wrote me back and said I was banned from the school for any test days, and that, don't force his hand. To which I responded, it's public property. I'm allowed as a parent to visit the school. I understand, you have a policy to not allow parents in during testing, but I have no problem sitting in a chair in the office quietly in case you need me or my daughter needs me. At which point he sent in writing and CC'd the local police chief. I was banned from all school property and any communication with any district employee. When I said I'd take it up from the school board, he then sent me an email saying the school board meetings take place on school property, and if I showed up, I'd be arrested. So
we've got to go to break.
An open public meeting of elected officials.
We've got to go to break. Where are you now? Is there a lawsuit yet?
My attorney sent a letter last week. School board meeting was this week, and I've been profiled in 2 out of the 3 local newspapers about this ban.
Are they fair in their profiles?
I believe so, yeah. I thought actually our most local paper here actually leaned a little my way.
Well, I think when the more people see that their rights as parents, how much is happening that is just what we could never imagine before. For our listeners, there is a movement, UnitedOptOut.com, UnitedOptOut.com, and you can get information there. Kathleen Jasper, I think is her name. And again, these are people that we, from across all different political spectrums, but she was an administrative person in the school, I think a principal or vice principal, quit because of what she saw happening to the young students over this testing. And so she has, I think, a blog spot. I think it's optout.wordpress.com. Kathleen Jasper, you can probably find her on Facebook. You can always go, as I said, to Truth for Our Time in Iowa for more information and to watch the the archives of this show, you can go to Tamara Scott Live on YouTube, Tamara Scott Live on YouTube, TAMARASCOTT. So, Eric, we are out of time, but I thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for sharing your story with us. I am sorry for your struggle. You are the parent. You are the authority. Please keep us posted. You and I have contact information now. Please keep us posted.
I will.
All right. We've got to go to a break. We've got to thank our sponsors. We want to thank Crave, Christians Reviving America. Crave, our sponsors, Christians for America. And we want to thank Webcast One Live. Webcast1live.com is where we do the station, do the show from. So we want to thank them as well. We'll be right back after these messages with Ann Gazel and with Gretchen Lug talking about the H.R. 5, the CETRA, the bills that are now at the federal level that they say are going to greatly change education and diminish parental authority once again, no matter whether you're public, private, or otherwise. And then we'll get the update on their lawsuit moving forward. We'll be right back after these messages. Thanks for staying tuned.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can give these grandkids back, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We can help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hey, psst. Let me let you in on a little secret. You ready? Always try to do business with people, not places. Especially if you seek honest Christian business people.